Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The topic today is regarding hepatitis B. And in today's talk we will be covering the salient feature regarding history, its epidemiology, the structure of the hepatitis B virus, its replication, its transmission, and the clinical feature and the clinical stages of the hepatitis B infection. The hepatitis is an initial disease, and the first description of hepatitis is seen in the writing of the Hippocrates in 5th century BC. The earliest evidence of a blood-borne outbreak of hepatitis was seen in Germany in 1983, when it was seen that after receiving smallpox vaccination, the workers of a shipyard and the residents of an asylum of the mentally insane person, they developed this jaundice and hepatitis. And then the term serum hepatitis was used for this type of hepatitis, because the other type of hepatitis, which was spread through the blood-borne disease, was known as infective hepatitis. And in 1947, McCallum and Boyer, they introduced the term hepatitis A for infectious hepatitis and hepatitis B for the serum hepatitis, and the same terminology was adopted by WHO in 1973. The term hepatitis is a broad term which describes any inflammation of the liver, and the various causes of hepatitis, they include alcohol, drugs, toxins and chemicals, autoimmune disorders, metabolic diseases, and various types of viruses. These viral infections, they account for more than half of the cases of acute hepatitis. And this viral hepatitis is a systemic disease, but predominantly involving the liver and causing inflammation of the liver, in addition to other extrahepatic and systemic manifestations. This is the alphabet of the hepatotropic viruses, or the viral hepatitis. And the hepatitis A virus was discovered in 1973. Hepatitis B virus as Dane particle was discovered in 1970, and before that in 1963 the Australia antigen was discovered in the serum of the native Australian aborigines who were suffering from leukemia. And in 1977 the Delta virus, which is incomplete virus and occurs as a co-infection or superinfection with hepatitis B, was given the name of hepatitis D virus. And after this discovery of hepatitis A and hepatitis B, it was known that there are still number of causes of hepatitis where the cause is neither A nor B. So we coined another terminology which was non-A non-B hepatitis. Later on, the studies in this category of the hepatitis revealed that this group of diseases consists of two types of viral infections. The one which is transmitted through the fecal-oral route and has feature very similar to hepatitis A virus, and because of its enteric transmission it was given the name of hepatitis E virus, and this was discovered in 1988. And in 1989 we discovered the other category of non-A non-B hepatitis, which has feature very similar to hepatitis B, is transmitted through the parental route and has got propensity to become chronic infections, and this was given the name of hepatitis C virus. The alphabet also includes hepatitis F, and the space is reserved for the cases of fulminant hepatitis, and the virus is still under the process of discovery and investigations. And then we also have hepatitis G virus, which has features similar to hepatitis C virus, and its clinical implications, they are not very clear. All these hepatitis viruses are RNA viruses except hepatitis B, which is a DNA virus. And depending upon the duration of the disease, the viral hepatitis is classified as acute hepatitis when the disease is self-limiting and it recovering within the 6 months. And if the pathological process and disease process persists more than 6 months, then we label it as chronic hepatitis. And coming back to the hepatitis B, it is a global health problem. It is a very serious and common infectious disease. It affects millions of people throughout the world. One of the main features of the hepatitis B is its tendency to become chronic depending upon the age. So at the younger age, like in the newborn, 90 to 95% of the infected children, they will become chronic. But as the age becomes more, the chances of getting chronic infections becomes less, and in the adulthood, the chances of getting carrier state and progressing to chronic liver disease is about 5 to 10%. And once the disease is become chronic, this can lead to end-stage liver disease. It can progress to cirrhosis, and one of the dreadful complications is hepatocellular carcinoma. And in addition to these various complications, the carriers of hepatitis B, they are capable of transmitting the disease to others for many years. Hepatitis B is a very common disease, and about 2 billion people in the world, which is 1/3 of the total world population, it shows evidence of infection with hepatitis B either at present or in the past. And out of these 2 billion, about 350 to 400 million persons, they are the active carriers and their surface antigen is positive. And among these 350 to 400 million patients, about 1 million they die every year because of complications of the related liver problems. Every year, about 4 million cases of acute hepatitis, they are added to the pool of the hepatitis B virus, and about 25% carrier state, 1 million people die every year from the various complications of liver disease. This diagram shows the prevalence of hepatitis B in the world, and because of this prevalence states, the world can be divided into 3 main groups. The areas of low prevalence, where the positivity of surface antigen is less than 2%. The intermediate, where the prevalence of surface antigen positivity is about 2 to 7%, and then high prevalence area, where the prevalence is more than 8%. The high endemic areas, where the prevalence is more than 8%, and the lifetime chances of getting infection is more than 60%, and the main areas where this disease is highly endemic, they include Southeast Asia, the Pacific Basin, the Sub-Saharan Africa, and part of the Middle East, and some countries in the Eastern Europe. And about 45% of the total world population, it resides in this area of high endemicity. The low endemic areas, they include North America, Western and Northern Europe, Australia and New Zealand. The prevalence of carrier state is less than 2%. The lifetime chance of getting chronic infection is less than 20%, and about 12% of the total world population is living in this area of low endemic prevalence. And then intermediate prevalence, which includes most of the other countries of the world, and 43% of the total world population is in the intermediate range, where the prevalence is 2 to 7%. The lifetime chance of getting infection is 20 to 60%, and the Indian subcontinent and our Pakistan is in this category of intermediate prevalence. The hepatitis B virus, it is a DNA virus. It is an enveloped virus, and it contains a partially double-stranded circular DNA genome. The negative strand is complete, but the positive strand is incomplete, and it is classified within the family of HepaDNA viruses. This family of HepaDNA viruses consists of 2 genera: the ortho-HepaDNA viruses, which mainly contain those viruses which infect various mammals, and then the AV hepatDNA viruses, which affect various birds like ducks, like stork and geese, etc. A very similar type of virus which can also infect the human beings is also seen in the bats and in the monkeys, and that shows that perhaps the old ancestors of this virus, they were the bats and these monkeys. The virus, it interferes with the function of the liver cells and it replicates in the hepatocytes. But the virus itself is not cytopathic. It does not itself cause damage to the liver cells. The damage is basically through the stimulation of immune system, and it is the immune mediation and immune activation which is responsible for causing inflammation of the liver, the clinical manifestations and various complications. And once the patient becomes a patient of chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, then 80% of the cases they can also get hepatocellular carcinoma, and in the world the commonest cause of hepatocellular carcinoma is the hepatitis B virus. One interesting thing about hepatitis B virus is that in most of the other conditions, usually the hepatocellular carcinoma occurs on the background of chronic liver disease and advanced cirrhosis. But this being a DNA virus, it controls over the machinery of the liver cells, and it can cause an oncogenic potential, and sometimes the first representation may be with the hepatocellular carcinoma. So the chronic liver disease and cirrhosis is not a prerequisite for the hepatocellular carcinoma to develop in cases of chronic hepatitis B. It is a DNA virus and it has got a remarkably compact genomic structures. Actually, this is the smallest DNA virus to infect the human beings. It has a circular and partially double-stranded DNA virus. There are two strands, the negative strand and the positive strands. The negative strand is complete strand, fully circular, whereas the positive strand is incomplete strand. And this type of DNA is known as relaxed circular DNA. All types of these hepatDNA viruses, they replicate by the process of reverse transcriptions, and in this property they are very similar to retroviruses. And because of this similarity, some of the drugs which are effective against the retroviruses like HIV, they are also effective against the hepatitis B virus. It is a small circular and contains 3200 bases, and the total size is 42 nanometer, and this composed of a nucleocapsid which contains the DNA and the surrounding core antigen, that is 27 nanomillimeter, and this is surrounded like all the viruses by a lipid layer which is derived from the host cells and various types of the antigens, the surface antigens. The complete virus particle is known as Dane particle because it was first discovered by the Dane and his colleagues in 1970, and the core antigen, which is located in the center, which is known as nucleocapsid, and it contains the core antigen and the E antigens. So in the blood, the virus is in the three forms: the complete infective type of the viruses, which is known as the Dane particle, which is 42 nanometer in size, contains the nucleocapsid, the outer lipid layer, and then the various types of the proteins and the various types of antigens. Actually, it contains 7 types of proteins: the core antigens, the E antigens, then hepatitis B X antigen, and the polymerase reverse transcriptase antigens, and 3 types of surface antigen. In addition to this complete infectious particle, Dane particle, there are subviral particles in the blood as well, which are devoid of any nuclear material, and they just consist of the surface antigens, and they are in the form of spheres or in the form of filaments, and they are 22 nanometer in size. The exact role of the subviral particle is not known, but perhaps they help to absorb the neutralizing antibodies which are produced by the host, and thus they help the complete infectious particle to invade the liver cells. And moreover, they also be contributing towards the state of immune tolerance, which is a prerequisite for a highly productive and persistent type of infection. The various types of the antigens and the structure of the hepatitis B. In the center, it contains the nucleocapsid with partially double-stranded DNA, and it contains the protein kinase. Then this is surrounded by the core antigen, and this core antigen is then surrounded by the E antigen, and then you have the surface antigen. And the surface antigen basically is of three types: the large, which is known as pre-S1, the medium is known as pre-S2, and the small type of surface antigen is the actual surface antigen of the hepatitis B virus. Regarding the replication of hepatitis B virus, it is important to consider the various features in the life cycle and in the replication of the hepatitis B virus, because the new drugs, they basically target these various steps in the life cycle, and perhaps they will be available in the future as very effective antiviral drugs. The hepatitis B virus, it first binds to a specific receptor at the surface of the liver cells, and then by the process of endocytosis, the viral nucleocapsid enters into the cells and reaches the nucleus, and where the viral genome is delivered. And then there is process of reverse transcription, by which the messenger RNA of the viruses, they are replicated, and then they produce various types of the proteins, and these proteins then they undergo translations, and then you get the RNA intermediate and ultimately the complete assembly of the virus, and then it is shed out of the liver cell. These are the various stages in the replication of the hepatitis B virus. In the first step, the hepatitis C, it attaches itself to the surface of liver cells, and there are two steps of this attachment. First step is reversible, and the attachment to a non-specific cell type of receptors, and in the second stage the attachment is irreversible and to a specific receptor. And after the attachment, then there is endocytosis of these viral particles, and by this endocytosis the lipid and the outer surface antigen, it remains outside, and the nucleocapsid, it enters into the cytosol of the liver cells. And this nucleocapsid, it then delivers its content of DNA and DNA polymerase into the nucleus of the liver cells. And once it is in the liver cells, this is basically in the form of the relaxed circular DNA, and then it is converted into a compact covalently closed circular DNA, the ccDNA, where the incomplete positive strands also becomes complete. The two ends of these DNA molecules, they are attached with each other, and you get a compact type of the DNA. And this closely covalent circular DNA, it then undergoes the process of reverse transcriptions, and at the same time the DNA polymerase, it also proliferates and produces the new nucleocapsids. the reverse transcription produces various types of messenger RNAs, and then they undergo translation to produce various types of proteins, and these proteins then they assemble with the nucleocapsid, and in the process of through the budding with the endoplasmic reticulum, and then they produce, after assembly, the complete viral particles. And these complete viral particles in the form of Dehn particles and in the form of subviral particles, which is basically excess of the surface antigens, they are captured in a vesicle, and this vesicle is then released from the liver cells into the circulation, and these cells now they are ready to infect the new liver cells. And this is the complete picture of this whole process of the viral life cycle and its replications. And now we are also having various drugs which are interfering with the various stages at the entry site and at the other multiple sites to interfere with the life cycles and to control the viral infections. The various modes of transmissions, they vary from the area to the area, and they depend upon the rate of prevalence. So in the low prevalence areas, the main route of transmission is through unprotected sexual intercourse and through IV drug abuse. In high endemic areas, the main route of transmission is perinatal and vertical transmissions, and in the intermediate zones, the major route of transmissions, they are horizontal. So sexual transmission is mainly seen in the heterosexual men and female, and the men who indulge in sex with men and those who indulge in sex with the sex workers, and particularly if they have other sexually transmitted diseases like HIV, then the chances of getting infection is quite high. Another important route of transmissions in the Western countries where the prevalence overall is low is the intravenous drug abuse, sharing the needles and syringes and other paraphernalia. They put them at increased risk of the transmissions. Perinatal transmissions and vertical transmission is the main route of transmission in the areas of the high prevalence, and this is the main source of maintaining the pool of hepatitis B virus. The mothers who are E antigen positive, they are at much higher risk of transmitting the infection to their newborn babies as compared to the mothers who are E antigen negative. Another important feature is the viral load, especially in the last trimester, and the presence of other sexually transmitted diseases and plus co-infection with the other viruses. There are certain things to be clarified. The route of delivery, especially the cesarean section, is not helpful in preventing the transmissions. So the rate of perinatal transmission is the same with spontaneous vaginal delivery and with the C-section. So elective cesarean section should not be done with the view of preventing the perinatal transmission. Every pregnant female should be investigated for the presence of surface antigen during her first antenatal visit and or subsequently, and if the surface antigen is negative, then he should be vaccinated according to the routine schedule. But if she is positive, then the transmission to the newborn baby can be prevented by the use of the antiviral drugs in the last trimester of pregnancy. And the recent studies have shown that tenofovir, talpividine and lamivudine if they are used in the last trimester of pregnancy, starting from the 30 week and then carrying on for the next 4 weeks after the delivery, significantly reduces the transmission in these patients. Another way of minimizing the infection to the newborn baby is providing with the active and the passive immunization at the time of delivery. The passive immunization is by giving immunoglobulins as early as possible, preferably within 12 hours, but they may be given up to 7 days if there was delay, and at the same time the newborn is given the first shot of the vaccine, and then the schedule of the vaccination is completed. With perinatal transmission, the main risk is because 90% of the newborn babies, they will become chronic carrier if the proper active and passive immunization is not taken care of. And the other route of transmission is basically through the nosocomial infections, through the needle stick injuries, and the horizontal contact in the household by the use of common objects like scissors, razors, toothbrushes, and other similar equipment. So various modes of transmissions shown in this diagram. So the high risk patients for getting hepatitis B infections, they are the people who are living in the endemic regions, then babies of the mothers who are suffering from chronic hepatitis B virus, intravenous drug abusers, people with multiple sex partners, hemodialysis patients, and healthcare personnel who come in contact with the blood, and the residents and staff members of the institutions for the mentally retarded persons. The hepatitis B virus is a dynamic disease and it passes through various stages. Traditionally, these stages, they are divided into 4 groups, and recently the nomenclature has been changed. The first stage is traditionally known as the stage of immune tolerance, and duration of this stage for healthy adult is approximately 2 to 4 weeks, and for the newborn baby the duration of this period may be in decades, and this coincides with the incubation period. Because the immune system is not being stimulated, so the viral replication is taking place very rapidly and actively. The surface antigen in patient is positive, and because immune system is not active, so the liver inflammation seen on histopathology or on the fibroscan is minimal or totally absent, and the ALT level, they are also in the normal range, and these patients, they do not show any symptom of the illness. After this stage of immune tolerance, then there is stage of immune clearance or immune activation, where body's immune system now becomes active, and this immune mediated injury to the liver cell causes inflammation, so the viral load now slightly decreases, the ALT levels now become high, and liver shows mild to moderate or severe degree of necroinflammations. The E antigen is positive in the blood, but its level, they decline, and duration of this stage for patients with acute infection is approximately 3 to 4 weeks, and this is the symptomatic period. For patients with chronic infections, sometime 10 years more may elapse before the patient gets inflammation and progress to cirrhosis. The third stage, and due to this immune activation and immune stimulation, the patient enters into the inactive carrier state, which is the third stage. the immune system, it targets the infected hepatocyte, and hepatitis B virus replication is no longer there. So now E antigen becomes negative, and this is replaced by the E antibodies. The total DNA level, they are much lower, and sometimes they may be undetectable, and because there is now no immune activation, so the aminotransfer levels, they are within the normal range, but the surface antigen is still positive. And then in the fourth stage, which is the immune reactivation, the E antigen is still negative, the E antibodies are positive, the viral load becomes slightly high, the ALT is also now high, and patient also shows features of the inflammations. So these are four traditional stages: the immune tolerance phase, the immune clearance phase, the inactive carrier state phase, and immune reactivation phase. And recently these four stages, they have been simplified, and the latest nomenclature divides these four stages into two main categories: the E antigen positive and E antigen negative disease. And E antigen positive, then you can have simple E antigen infection and E antigen hepatitis, and E antigen positive infection and E antigen negative hepatitis. Hepatitis B virus has total 7 antigens and proteins. It contains 3 types of surface antigens: the large, which is pre-S1, the middle is pre-S2, and the small is the surface antigen. Then it contains the hepatitis B X antigen. The exact role is not known. Perhaps it is involved in the coordination of transcription and translations. And then the polymerase and reverse transcriptase activity, and then the E antigen and the core antigens. And out of these 7 antigens, these 3 antigen antibody system, they are important: the surface antigen and the surface antibody system. The surface antigen appears 1 to 2 weeks, and sometimes after 11 to 12 weeks after the completion of the incubation period, and it usually persists for about 1 to 6 weeks. It should disappear from the blood within 6 months, because if the surface antigen persists beyond 6 months, then patient probably has progressed to the carrier state and chronic liver disease. And in the chronic carrier state, then the surface antigen persists in the blood for many years, and the surface antigen is a marker of infectivity. The surface antigen is found in the blood and almost all body secretions, including saliva, semen, sweat, urine, breast milk, and in the tears. And once the surface antigen disappears, then there is a window period of few weeks to few months, and then you get the appearance of the surface antibodies. So surface antibodies only appear in the blood once the surface antigen has completely disappeared, and the appearance of surface antibodies indicates 3 things. Number 1, this patient has made a complete recovery. Number 2, this patient is not a carrier, and this patient is not going to suffer from the chronic liver disease and other consequences associated with chronic hepatitis B. The surface antibodies are protective antibodies, and they protect against the future attacks of the hepatitis B, and this is the basis for vaccination, where we inject the recombinant surface antigen. It induces the body's immune system to produce surface antibodies which provide protection. The other important system is the E antigen and the E antibodies. The E antigen can be found in the nucleus of the liver cells. Basically, this is the core antibodies, the core antigen and core antibodies. The nucleocapsid is surrounded by the core antigen, and this core antigen is never exposed in the blood. It is only detected within the nuclei of the liver cells, and there is no free core antigen in this serum. The core antigen is a marker of replication of hepatitis B virus, and the window period where the surface antigen has disappeared and the surface antibodies, they still not have appeared, and in that window period, if one has to make a diagnosis of hepatitis B, then this is the core antibodies, because the core antibody is not appearing in the blood. So core antibodies, they appear right from the very beginning. Initially they are of IgM type, and then later on they are replaced by the IgG. So in the window period, the marker of diagnosis is the core antibodies. And the third type of antigen is the E antigen, and the antibodies against this E antigen. This is a soluble antigen, and this is not a compact antigen like the surface antigen or the core antigen, and it is a reliable indicator of the active replication of hepatitis B virus. So every patient of hepatitis B virus should be investigated for the presence of the E antigen positivity or negativity, because the future treatment and the level of the DNA at which the drug should be started, they depend upon whether the patient is E antigen positive or E antigen negative. And once the E antigen disappears and is replaced by the E antibodies, this is a marker of reduced infectivity. And this is the diagram of a patient who was infected with hepatitis B, and then it makes a recovery. The surface antigens, they appear in the blood at the end of the incubation period, and they disappear within 24 weeks. Because the core antibodies, the core antigen is not appearing in the blood, so core antibodies, they appear in the blood soon after the surface antigens, and the IgM type of core antibodies, they are short-lived and they will disappear about 24 to 32 weeks, and then they are replaced by the IgG type of the core antibodies. And once the surface antigen has disappeared with a gap of few weeks to few months, then you get the appearance of the surface antibodies. And as the surface antibodies will only appear when the surface antigen has disappeared, and once the surface antigen has disappeared, the E antigen also has disappeared. So the presence of surface antibodies indicates this patient has completely recovered, is protective against the future attacks of hepatitis B, and is also not going to progress to carrier state or to the chronic liver disease. So in the window period, when the surface antigen is disappeared, the surface antibody still has not appeared, the marker of diagnosis are these antibodies against the core antigen. And this diagram shows the various types of antigen and antibodies in a patient who becomes a carrier. So surface antigen, it appears in the blood at its normal time after the completion of incubated period, but now it persists in the blood after 6 months. Now this patient has become a carrier. The core antibodies, they will appear after the surface antigen, and again initially they will be of IgM type, and later on they will be replaced off by the IgG. And as surface antigen has not disappeared, so the surface antibodies will not appear in the blood. And because surface antibodies are not there, so it indicates, number one, this patient has not made a complete recovery. This patient has become carrier and is prone to get the complications related with chronic carrier state, and this patient is not protective against the future attacks of hepatitis B virus. Briefly about the pathogenesis, the hepatitis B virus, it invades into the human body either through the mucosal or through the cutaneous penetration, and it then enters into the bloodstream, and through the bloodstream it enters into the liver cells and other organs of the body, and particularly it invades the pancreas, the bile ducts, the blood vessels, the WBCs, bone marrow, the glomerular basement membrane. The presence of the various antigens in the liver cells, it stimulates the immune system, and first there is stimulation of innate immune system, and afterwards there is stimulation of the adaptive immune system, and through the various cells and other mediators of these immune system, there is now inflammation of the liver cells, and this immune system is basically responsible for causing necrosis of the liver cells, and thus it stops the process of viral replications in these damaged liver cells. Remember, the virus itself is not cytopathic. It is the immune stimulation by the various mediators and various cells of the immune system which are responsible for causing inflammation and damage to the liver cells. And regarding the signs and symptoms, the onset is just like other non-specific viral infections, with low-grade fevers and various constitutional symptoms with fatigue, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting and abdominal pain, especially in the right hypochondrium, and with the appearance of the jaundice and increase in the bilirubin level. The urine becomes dark, and with the development of cholestatic phase and element of intrahepatic cholestasis, the stool become clay colored, and patient will also get pruritus. Joint symptoms sometimes becomes a very predominant features. The patient becomes clinically jaundiced, and there is tender hepatomegaly. The incubation period usually is about 6 weeks to 6 months, and these symptoms they begin on average about 3 months and sometimes between 2 to 5 months after exposure to hepatitis B virus. And these symptoms that typically last for several weeks, but sometimes they can persist up to 6 months, and then the patient enters into the chronic state if the surface antigen still has not disappeared. The table showing various clinical features. The incubation period on average is 6 weeks to 6 months. The clinical illness, acute hepatitis, usually the jaundice is seen in the adult persons, and when the disease occurs in the adult and in the age more than 5 years, 30 to 50% of the patients can present with the jaundice in the acute state, but in children the jaundice is only seen in less than 10% of the cases. Very rarely this can progress to the fulminant hepatitis, and with mortality of 0.5 to 1%. And chronic infections, it depends upon the age at which the infection is settled. Below the age of 5 years, 30 to 90% of the children they will become chronic. The newborn, 90% of them become chronic, and after the 1 year the chances of getting chronic state gradually decreases, and then it is between 30 to 90%. And in the adult, the chances of getting carrier state, chronic carrier state, is about 5 to 10%. And once these patients they get features of chronic liver disease, they progress to end-stage liver disease with cirrhosis and all its complications, then the overall mortality is 15 to 25%. The features of acute hepatitis B, there are 3 stages. The first stage is pre-ecteric, when patient presents with the non-specific features and patient clinically is not jaundiced, because jaundice will only appear when the serum bilirubin will exceed more than 3 mg per deciliter. And once the liver functions are more markedly disturbed and the serum bilirubin becomes high, the patient now becomes clinically jaundiced and ecteric, and then patient shows a convalescence and recovery. The pre-ecteric stage mainly is associated with those non-specific constitutional symptoms with anorexia, vague abdominal discomfort, nausea and vomiting, fatigue, tiredness, and arthralgias, and sometimes skin rash. and usually within 10 days of onset of symptom, this patient they becomes clinically jaundice. Now the urine becomes dark, the stool becomes pale and clay colored, and there's yellow discoloration of the sclera, skin, and the mucous membrane, and the total bilirubin now will be more than 3 milligram per deciliter. Patient will show tender hepatomegaly and sometimes splenomegaly, and after the disappearance of jaundice, patient usually recovers and there is appearance of surface antibodies. The appearance of jaundice in acute hepatitis indicates that the immune system is stimulated more aggressively, and because of this more aggressive stimulation, it also controls the virus, and surface antigen usually disappears after the symptomatic acute hepatitis with jaundice. In the convalescent phase, the antibodies against the core antigen, which initially were IgM, they are now converted to IgG type. The surface antigen, E antigen, and viral DNA, they may be present for 6 months, but later on there is seroconversion to the surface antibodies and to the E antibodies. And after acute hepatitis, depending upon the age, about 5 to 10% of the adult and 7 to 90% of the children, they will progress to the stage of chronic liver disease when the markers, especially the surface antigen, it persists beyond 6 months. And throughout the world, about 350 to 400 millions, they are the active carriers which are surface antigen positive, and out of these 350 millions, about 100 millions, they are in the China. And out of these chronic infections, 70% of them, they will develop chronic persistent hepatitis, and about 30% of them, they will progress to develop chronic active hepatitis. And this is the diagram which shows the outcome in a patient with hepatitis B. The acute hepatitis, in 90% of the cases, it will show resolution, and this is in the adults. And in 10% of the cases, it either will show the feature of fulminant hepatitis in 1% of the cases, and in many 99% of the cases, the surface antigen will persist beyond 6 months, and patient will progress to the stage of chronicity. And out of these chronic stage, 50% they will be either asymptomatic and stable carriers, they will show features of resolutions, and remaining will develop either features of chronic persistent hepatitis or chronic hepatitis or chronic active hepatitis. And then these patients, they can progress to end stage liver disease, to cirrhosis, and one dreadful complication is the occurrence of hepatocellular carcinoma. And some of the patients, they can also get features of extrahepatic manifestations, and 2 extrahepatic manifestations, they are very specific for hepatitis B. One is the polyarteritis nodosa, and the features are very similar to the polyarteritis nodosa occurring in other patients. And the second extrahepatic manifestations is the renal involvement with various types of glomerulonephritis. Particularly, it produces membranous type of nephropathy, but sometimes it can also produce membranoproliferative and can present with the nephrotic syndrome and other type of renal presentations. One of the most deadly complications of the hepatitis B is development of hepatocellular carcinoma, and 70 to 80% of the hepatocellular carcinoma in the world, they are associated with hepatitis B. Most of the time, the hepatocellular carcinoma occurs on the background of chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, but sometimes the first presentation may be with hepatocellular carcinoma, and sometimes even after treatment, the hepatocellular carcinoma can develop. So treating the patient with nucleoside and nucleotide analogs it to some extent reduces but does not completely eradicate the risk of the developing hepatocellular carcinoma. And there are various types of predictive models like REACH-B or the PAGE-B, which can predict the occurrence of hepatocellular carcinoma in patients who are treated or who are untreated. And about 1% of the patients, they can get the fulminant type of hepatitis, and this is due to the massive necrosis of the liver substance, and it usually is fatal, and usually survival in the adult is uncommon. And usually this fulminant hepatitis, it shows in those patients which show genetic heterogeneity. They are co-infected with other hepatitis viruses, and these patients, they are also involved in other toxic exposures like alcohol and other toxins and chemicals. And the various types of extrahepatic manifestation in the acute phase, these patients, they can develop a serum sickness like illness with fever, rash and arthralgia. And one particular feature is the papular acrodermatitis known as Gennoti-Crosti syndrome in the children, and in the adults they can develop renal disease and polyarteritis nodosa. So thank you very much for your patience.